You're a storyteller. Tell us a little bit about when you go to visit. Take us into a lab or visiting one of these scientists and what inspires you about it? What takes you to the next step of wanting to be involved? I'd love to know what it's like to visit one of these labs or a field or see somebody working with cell agriculture.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, with the cell ag, I think part of it was that they hadn't really written what standards and practices were going to be. So I think one of the things I'm proudest of, which was a relatively small investment, but I think really impactful, is kind of writing out what the guidelines really should be, the ethical guidelines as you're going into this massive space, this sector that can do so much good, but left unchecked, not unlike the internet or other things, you could wind up really creating a lot of issues. So sometimes it's just asking the people, how can we get ahead of what a steering committee for how even dealing with this space should look? Um, but then, for instance, and there's some things that are going on right now that I can't talk about. I have the list of things that I can mention and not. But sometimes you meet with these founders, and maybe it's uh, someone who's going to do something in the EV space. And all these spaces now, I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, have become so crowded that it's really hard to differentiate which team is strong enough to really compete in this space, which people are really going to make the innovations that can matter and not just be another voice in the room. So I think some of it is kind of like, I hate to say this, but it's kind of like casting. I've been on both sides of the casting situation where you want someone to think that you're the guy or gal, the individual for the job, but really you're looking for this kind of perfect fit. So you know even right at our inception, it was really easy for us to understand that this company, Insect, was taking mealworms. These were going to defray, the need for what we were doing with aquaculture and this crazy thing that we were feeding fish to create fish stock. Just sometimes, if you look at an outmoded, horrible, obvious problem, you still need to find the companies that can access a solution that is really going to not just work on paper. And I think it can be really confusing because it's a very there's so much wind at the back of this movement that I think sometimes people who aren't quite prepared to really be able to scale businesses wind up getting a lot of support. So it's like anything. Sometimes, the no's are more important than the yeses.